us. My name is Susan Demas. I'm the executive editor of Lincoln Square. And joining me today is Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. She has been in office for over 6 years, and she has led cases against the Republican fake electors in the 2020 election in Michigan, the Line 5 oil pipeline, and she has sued the Trump administration a lot. Before she was elected, she took on Michigan's same-sex marriage ban, and that was a case that was actually rolled into the landmark 2016 Obergefell Supreme Court decision. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, General. So far since January, I believe you have joined at least 17 lawsuits against the Trump administration, and that includes challenging their efforts to ditch birthright citizenship, the actions of Elon Musk at DOGE, RFK Jr. dismantling the Department of Health and Human Services, the OMB freeze on federal dollars, and more. So can you walk us through some of the most significant cases and talk to us about what's at stake here?
Sure. Well, so as of today, we're at 18 cases that are multi-state filings against the Trump administration. We have an additional action. It's not a lawsuit yet, but it is a case that Michigan filed on our own because we were the only ones impacted, involving the J.H. Campbell plant, which is a coal plant on the west side of the state in Ottawa County, that through a manufactured emergency order, the government Secretary of Energy is forcing consumers' energy to stay open, even though it was slotted to be decommissioned already. So,
Wasn't that an action that the company took?
no, oh gosh,
No,
no, consumers' energy. They were 8 days away from closing the plant down. They
right.
slated
That's
to
what I meant. They
decommission
were
for
ready to
years.
close it.
That's right. So the action that was taken was by the Department of Energy, who issued an emergency order to keep it open, even though there's no coal left at the plant, and there was no one left practically working at the plant because it was just about to shut down. But now, at what will likely be, tens of millions of dollars, could be upwards of $90 million, uh, it's being forced to stay open. And that money, you can be sure, will be passed along from consumers' energy to ratepayers here in the state of Michigan. So once again, the Trump administration not so much keeping costs down
Mhm.
as for in a totally nonsensical way deciding to increase our costs in really every space of life.
Right. So you've also taken on cases involving immigration, civil rights, healthcare. And I know you've worked very closely with a lot of attorneys general in other states. Um, Tell us a little bit about what your coalitions are looking like and some of the issues at stake.
Sure. Well, unfortunately, we were a little bit more, for better or worse, we were more prepared for the second administration than the first. And candidly, a lot of this came about through a conversation I had with my Democratic colleagues at an event we were all attending, a conference back in February of 2024.
Mm.
And my very blue state colleagues, were totally assured of a Biden reelection. And I sort of had to break to them, as did the other swing state AGs. I don't know that Biden is going to win our state. And obviously,
And
Biden
he
not winning
didn't. Well,
not winning the
Harris
swing
didn't.
states results in a Trump second term. So I said,
Hmm.
listen, we really have to be ready for this, and we have to be as prepared as possible. So right away, we started looking at Project 2025 and trying to be as prepared as possible for what cases we might have to bring. Obviously, we couldn't predict everything that was going to happen,
Hmm.
but for at least the things that they had specifically listed and put into writing themselves, we could make a calculus as to some of the things that were going to happen, and other things we were going to just have to, you know, file on the fly. So, for instance, the birthright case, which was day one,
Right.
an executive order from Trump, we knew about that
Hmm.
because he had talked about it. What we didn't know about was shortly thereafter, that the acting director of the Office of Management and Budget would decide to completely defund all state programs and literally, you know, our most essential programs, Medicaid and Head Start and Meals on Wheels and FEMA, and the list goes on, you know, got one night received this memo from the acting director. The next morning, no more money flowing to any of our 50 states.
And
And
that was money that Congress had actually already appropriated. So this is just a unilateral action by the Trump administration, correct?
yeah, absolutely. And you know, the thing about it, as I often say to our residents in Michigan, that's our money. This isn't like some benevolent overlord who decides to, you know, dole out money to all of us. Like we paid our taxes, state taxpayers in Michigan, businesses in Michigan paid taxes to the federal government. It comes back to us in the way of financing of these federal programs. We expect it. But a case
Hmm.
like that, no warning to the participants of the programs, but no warning to the state agencies, not even a warning to the federal agencies that administer those programs. But what we did was kind of a remarkable thing. In 24 hours, less than 24 hours, all 23 Democratic AGs filed a lawsuit the very next day, and then a few hours later, we received a temporary restraining order from the court saying you have to reinitiate the funding of those programs. This is completely illegal, and it's likely that you know the states are going to win in court as this case is litigated, and furthermore, there will be immediate irreparable harm done to millions and millions of people in all of these states. And that was a case, for instance, where following that, the OMB just decided to withdraw and rescind that memo. Same thing on a case that Michigan led on, the NIH, National Institute of Health cases, where all of a sudden on Friday night, there was a memo that was issued saying that they were going to significantly decrease the amount of indirect costs that were funded to all of these research facilities and treatment facilities at our major universities and our healthcare centers, uh, and that it was going to start Monday morning. So
General, I think we may have lost her a little bit. She was talking about the OMB decision to get rid of funding and then the aftermath of that. And I'm hoping that she's going to be able to return because there are so many other cases for us to go through. I think she's coming back. Let's keep our fingers crossed. You never know with Michigan weather. It could be sunny and you can lose power anyway, which is another cause that the Michigan Attorney General has taken on. She has taken on trying to lower costs for ratepayers because, like in many states, we've seen a lot of increases in our electric rates. Another thing that we're hoping to talk with Attorney General Nessel about is her involvements in LGBTQ rights. Even before she was Attorney General, she played a very prominent role in the marriage equality case in Michigan. And then as Attorney General, she had uh, a very unique experience in implementing a lot of a lot of laws that made progress on that front, which has been a huge change in Michigan and has kind of bucked the trend because in a lot of red states, there have been a lot of rollbacks of rights. We are hoping that we can get the Attorney General back. I hear that we might have progress on this front, and I apologize because I'm far less interesting than she is. But she's very busy, and we're hoping that we can talk with her because There are so many important things going on. We have some pretty key elections coming up in 2026 in most states. Michigan has an open gubernatorial and US Senate seat. And so that's definitely something that we want to check in with her about as well. Um, And in the meantime, as we're waiting, I will do a plug because yesterday, Bobby Jones, who is the host of Anchor Watch, made time for us on a Sunday and talked with us about the latest developments with the bombing in Iran. And if you did not get a chance to see it, I would encourage you to do so because his insights are just so important. He has been to the region, he's been in the Straits of Hormuz, and so he understands all of the geopolitical factors that are going on right now. And we're very much looking forward to his regularly scheduled edition of Anchor Watch that's at noon tomorrow, at noon every Tuesday, right here in Lincoln Square. And of course, we have had several articles about the situation in Iran. Please check out Lincoln Square tomorrow. We will have more on that front. Um, and also, if you have questions for Bobby, please feel free to send them in. He loves to answer them on air. And I'm sure with everything that's going on, you have lots of questions right now. I think we all do, especially with Trump deciding to tweet that, you know what, maybe regime change is a good idea after we heard that it was going to be a very limited strike. So, um, the Attorney General right now said that she is involved in 18 cases, and she's definitely been at the forefront of a lot of these lawsuits, along with attorneys general from New York and California, in particular, also Wisconsin, and a few of the other big blue states. Um, but she definitely has been at the forefront of the legal resistance to Trump and has gotten some
Yeah.
national attention for that as well. And I see that she's back.
Hi.
Hello.
Well, that's the trials and tribulations of trying to do things live on the internet. So
I
my
I blame
apologies if that was us.
I blame the major utilities for you. I hope that's
Thank you.
okay. Yeah. So you
Uh-oh.
can use that as more reason to try and get our rates
I'll just
down.
do it again.
But thank you for coming back. I did
Yeah,
want
now
to ask.
she's trying to load, but we can still see us.
Good times.
Why do we have no signal in here today?
I have no idea.
This
Yeah,
is
having
the
trouble
joy of live
connecting.
television. So we can see her. Now we're hoping to hear her because, again, far more interesting than me. And we have a lot to talk about. And we're hoping that we'll have at least a few more minutes with her before she has to leave us at 1. General, are you here?
Okay, now I see you.
see?
I can see you and hear you. I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening. My apologies.
Did you say you can hear us?
I can, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I did want to ask you because you've definitely been such a trailblazer on LGBTQ rights. And I remember back in 2019, we did an interview where you predicted that the Supreme Court was going to overturn its a landmark marriage equality decision. So do you still see that happening? And when do you think it will?
I'm sorry, you cut out for a second. Did you say that the Supreme Court will overturn it? Is that what you said?
Yes, you
Okay.
predicted that way back 6 years ago, and I am guessing that your opinion has not changed.
No, it hasn't. And I think if we've seen anything through particularly the Dobbs decision, the, lack of hesitation in overturning a 50-year-old decision that had to do, of course, with due process rights, equal protection rights. And so if they're going to overturn abortion rights, I don't really see them feeling like they have to hold on to marriage equality. Other people are free to disagree with me. I hope I'm wrong. If they don't, very specifically overturn Obergefell, then what I do is see them sort of whittling away, chipping away at the protections and the rights that are normally encapsulated in any marriage. And as you know, may she rest in peace, former Justice of the Supreme Court Ruth Bader Ginsburg once said, you don't treat some marriages differently than others. There's not, regular marriage and then skim light marriage. But what I could see happening is them saying, be based on your religious beliefs under the First Amendment, certain employers, maybe even certain governmental entities or personnel can treat opposite sex couples and same sex couples who are married, their relationships different. Only opposite sex couples are entitled to, say, retirement benefits or healthcare benefits or things of that nature. I could see that happening. So there will be some way, in some form, to chip away at the rights that we gained in Obergefell, which were complete and total rights, exactly identical to that of opposite sex couples. So, I think they have at least 5 votes, if not 6, on the Supreme Court right now to do that. And what we have seen time and again is this strategy where, these sort of extremist groups will file a case, normally in the Northern District of Texas. Then they'll go to the Fifth Circuit, the most conservative circuit anywhere in the United States. And then that case will go up to the Supreme Court, whether they like it or not. Oftentimes, the Supreme Court is forced to take those cases out of the Fifth Circuit. Sometimes it's just because they don't want the very extreme holding from the Fifth Circuit to stand. But I do see this pattern. What I will say has changed, even if that does happen, and I very much hope it won't. I think that so much of the country has become totally accustomed to, equal dignity under the law for same-sex marriage couples, that they'll be a lot less tolerant and accepting of this kind of decision. And I could see a lot of states moving to repeal their bans on same-sex marriage, so that at least in states like Michigan, we've already heard talk, and we saw the formation of at least one ballot committee who seeks to repeal the Michigan Marriage Amendment and the underlying statutes that made marriage equality illegal in Michigan. I could see those being repealed because I think it'd be a very popular ballot proposal. And the other thing is we have the Respect for Marriage Act now, which provides full faith and credit for marriages performed in another state. So even for, say, the 35 states or so that have marriage bans, if you got married in one of the other states where it's legal, you came back to your own state, your marriage would be respected under the law. So that's an improvement, certainly, and something we didn't have prior to Obergefell. But I think it was Hillary Clinton that in 2016 said something like, every civil rights movement is never really done. You have to keep fighting. Each generation has to keep on fighting just to preserve the gains that they've made. And I think that's especially true of LGBTQ rights. One of the things that we saw was in a very quick period of time that LGBTQ people really made a significant amount of progress in all kinds of realms. And I will say this in Michigan, when this case was brought initially, which was DeBoer v. Snyder in Michigan.
And you were the lead lawyer on that.
I was one of the lead attorneys, yeah. And we had no rights of any kind in Michigan. In fact, I think they used to call us Mississippi because we had about the same amount of rights as Mississippi, and we were in the very, very bottom. But we had no rights to marriage, adoption, employment, public accommodations, housing. We weren't protected by hate crimes. I mean, the list goes on and on. No protections of any kind whatsoever under the law. And we now have all of those rights here in Michigan. So, but I think it's important for the younger generations, Gen Z, younger millennials, to appreciate just as quickly as we got all those rights, we can lose them as well. Right. I personally think one of the things that happened was, and back in 2003, when the Texas case was decided, Lawrence v. Texas, which was the sodomy laws, which we still have on the books in Michigan here. And that could still be subject to being overturned. I've heard it rumored about. But once people knew that their relationships were not criminal, more people came out of the closet. And now we have with Generation Z, I think twice as many members of Generation Z identify as being LGBTQ plus than my generation, Gen X. So that's a lot of people. And
Right.
for a lot of people to have grown up believing that they were equal under the law and believing they were entitled to the same protections and rights, I don't think there's any putting that genie back into the bottle exactly. But we are going to have to fight for it. And that means
Right.
people have to vote, and they have to vote for, wait for it, what's in their best interests, not just because they want to hurt other people. They
hmm
have to vote in a way that protects their own rights and their own interests. So I have faith that eventually we will come out of this dark time and the backlash that we're clearly seeing. And at some point, we hopefully won't see the same kinds of issues that we're having right now under the Trump administration.
Right. Back in 2020, you, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, who's running for governor next year, and she will actually be on Lincoln Square tomorrow. You were known as those women from Michigan because you fought with Trump early and often. And this photo here, which is one of my favorites, it's your Charlie's Angels pose that you struck back at the 2022 Michigan Democratic Convention when you were all renominated. And that kind of became an iconic photo. But, it does seem like things have changed. The governor has not joined very many of your lawsuits against the Trump administration. So, what's your relationship like with her today?
Well, first of all, I just want to make a note of the fact that I was the only one that knew the right way to do the Charlie's Angels
You did.
pose.
You
And I
did
don't
the
know if
gun
that's because
pose.
I'm the oldest of the three of us, possibly. And it took me a long time to convince them to do that with me. So I consider it a huge victory that we have that photo. Um, no, look, obviously the governor and I have taken some different approaches to handling a second Trump term. I just believe strongly in this, right? I think that when you have someone who has no regard for the law, is not interested in the rule of law, is not
hmm
interested in obeying court rulings, doesn't even know if he is subject to upholding the Constitution. He has said
hmm
so himself, despite the fact that he took an oath to do that very thing.
hmm
uh, I don't think you can treat him like any regular president who just happens to be of the opposing party. The types of things that he has done, there's just no comparison between him and either of the Bush presidencies, the Reagan presidency, certainly Ford. I'm trying to go back through my life. I'm going to stop at Nixon. Nixon had some similarities, but still, I would take the Nixon administration any day of the week over this second Trump term. Uh,
Republicans were also willing to check his power.
yes, and that's another big difference. It really is a cult of personality. There's nothing else that you can say, and I don't know that we'll see this again in American history. I sure hope we don't. But
hmm
that being the case, I think you have to stand up to bullies. That's the only thing that's ever worked. And I look at our lawsuits. Out of our 18 lawsuits we've filed, we have received either preliminary injunctions or the administration has just decided to withdraw whatever the objectionable action was in 10 of these 18 so far. And
hmm
we've not lost any cases outright, but so far we've stopped the harm from happening in 10 of those cases.
Right.
And that's the thing, you have to stand up. If you're not going to stand up in opposition, then as I always say as a lawyer, I can't win a case I never file. Uh, and so,
I mean, in your assessment, is the governor not fighting? I mean, you've said that her stance in trying to work with Trump is dangerous. What kind of impacts is that having on the citizens of Michigan and elsewhere?
I think it's important that we not normalize this presidency. And my concern is when you have leaders in high positions of elected office that many people, trust and have great respect for, and when that person says, "Hey, Donald Trump is someone I can work with. He is a reasonable person, and he is a person who is a man of his word. He will keep his promises. When you engage or traffic in that kind of rhetoric, uh, I think people start to think, well, maybe he's not so bad. Maybe he is a man of his word. Maybe he is somebody who is a good faith actor that you can negotiate with. Well, I don't find that to be the case at all. And what I've seen time and time again, I mean, from a historical perspective, we've never seen this kind of corruption by any president ever to be sworn into office. The chaos, the criminality, the fact that he will use any and every excuse to utilize an emergency order for a manufactured crisis that he created.
Right.
And he can't get legislation
Right.
through.
With
And he hasn't.
immigration and dispatching the Marines and the National Guard into Los Angeles, for instance.
That's just one really concerning example of the many that we've seen. And so, my thought is that, for people who try to normalize this presidency, it's dangerous and it sends the wrong message to the public. For me, I want to be able to stand up as a lawyer in court each and every time that a couple things happens. One, the president or his administration violates the law. And two, it hurts our state. It creates a specific concrete injury, either to the state of Michigan or to the people of the state of Michigan. And I'm going to stand up in court and I'm going to fight each and every time that I see that. And even if it's not a court pleading, I'm going to speak out vigorously, forcefully against what I see this administration doing that I believe is so, in some cases, maybe irrevocably harmful to not just the state and not just the country, but the whole world. And I really mean that. I mean, I look at, for instance, our case, one of our cases against the Department of Health and Human Services and RFK Jr. And if you see it, like, here's a guy who is closing down, shuttering CDC labs that test for deadly infectious diseases that could create the next, global wide pandemic and kill millions and millions of people just because he doesn't believe in science.
Right.
I mean, what do you say when he's decided he doesn't want to test for things like Ebola or measles or bird flu? I mean, in what universe is that okay? And so I think we have to stand up and be like, this is ridiculous. It's crazy. It's harmful. And it's going to destroy us all. And I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how much privilege you have. You could be born to the, richest family in the world in Michigan. You could be the DeVos family. Guess what? You're not going to do any better against Ebola than anybody else is,
Right.
Betsy. And you ought to know that. That's what you're supporting, is the spread of Ebola.
I do want to ask you, I know you have to
cut out
go,
again.
but we do have
Oh.
we do have an open US Senate seat, and I saw a poll that you were at the top of the pack. Is that anything that you
I
are
don't know. I could
considering?
sing. If you guys can still see or hear me, I can do plenty of songs. I'm not a good singer, but I do enjoy a good. Nope.
I don't think it's a coincidence that it cut out when I was asking her if she was going to run for office, but that's just me. I really hope that we can get the Attorney General back at some time, because there is so much more for us to talk about. She was at 3 No Kings protests just a week ago, and it would be great to hear about her experience there. So we are definitely going to reach out and see if the Michigan Attorney General can come back sometime soon so that we can go through a few more of these very important issues. But I really appreciate you joining us this afternoon. And please tune in at 3 o'clock today, because I will be talking with Congressman Jason Crow from Colorado. We will be going through the latest of what's going on with the Iran bombing, and also the budget bill that has been pushed a little bit to the back burner. And I don't think the president is too sad about that, as we've been talking so much about Iran. But the bill is very much alive. It's in the US Senate. And we're going to talk with the congressman about what the current state of play is and how much worse the bill has gotten. So thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it.